Okay, so for my final evaluation of an upper body injury, it actually happened tonight, luckily. It was during the basketball game. A girl had, I believe, dove for a ball. Yeah, she had dove for a ball and had gotten her hand stepped on, and she had hyperextended all of her phalanges in her hand. So she hyperextended them all the way back, and it felt pain all the way radiating down the ulnar side of her hand. I talked to her parents before. Well, I talked to her parents after the injury. They said she has injured this before. So I started my evaluation off by palpating the ulnar side of the wrist. Because that's where her original injury was on the ulnar side of the wrist. So I palpated up the wrist. She had moderate pain there, not too bad. Started palpating up the hand, the carpal bones, made sure those all were fine. I found really nothing there. It was just moderate pain and everything. Made sure I got to the other side of the hand as well to make sure there was no referred pain over there. Palpated the thumb all the way through the hand. Got no pain up there. I didn't really get much of a reaction until I got to the metacarpal phalangeal joint, the first metacarpal phalangeal joint. I asked her basically, has she ever heard this before? What did it feel like? Did she hear any crack or anything like that? She said she felt a pop, so I assumed it was maybe I'm not sure, maybe a slight dislocation or subluxation of the finger where it popped out and came back in. It was hard to get any much subjective information out of her because she was in so much pain and kind of crying. So I mean, I try to get her to calm down as much as I can, but it was difficult. So mainly, most of the information I got was through palpation or observation of what I basically all objective information that I got. I started manual muscle testing her hand and her fingers. So I did a flexion of the finger, extension of the finger, adduction, all which had minimal to, I'd say at the most a grade 2 to 3. She was able to go through slight risk. She was able to go through gravity and everything, but nothing through resistance. I barely put any resistance on her, and I couldn't really get much of anything as far as contraction. Also, to be on the safe side, I manual muscle tested the flexors and extenders of the wrist. She was fine there. No, I mean, grade 4 to 5, if anything. I mean, obviously there was pain and swelling in the area, so there would be some slight lack of motion, but there was anything notable worthy. Like I said, the main pain was in the metacarpal phalangeal joint, right here, or right here on the distal phalange, or the most proximal phalange, and I kind of actually missed this one. At this point, I really couldn't figure out exactly what it was. I mean, I did the bump test to test for a fracture, and it didn't really change the results. But as I let kind of Sarah take over, well, not take over, but I let her assess it a little bit more further, and she had found while she was trying to, she had assumed there was a dislocation of the finger, so she had tried to relocate it, but while trying to slightly pull on the finger and relocate it, she had felt like grinding and popping within the proximal phalangeal, the proximal phalange. With that being said, we went and got the finger brace, finger splint, and basically had the metal foam pad and splinted the palmar side of her finger down, all the way down to the pretty much through the metacarpal joint, above and below the joint, obviously, and power flex that on all the way to the top of the pinky and through the hand as well. With that, with that being said, the way Sarah discovered by her trying to reduce a joint that she thought was dislocated or subluxed. We believed it to be possible fracture of the proximal phalange, and had her. We'll talk to her mom shortly after, and had her. Basically, she was obviously done with the game, but go get X-rays to prove us right or wrong. And it turns out they actually went and got X-rays immediately after. Actually, during the game, it seemed like they left a little bit before the girls' game got over, and we had received a picture of the X-ray kind of, and it was a spiral fracture of the distal proximal phalangeal joint, spiral fracture all the way down, And so most likely they're going to either put a pin in her finger, or I'm not really sure how they would assess it, but that's what we assumed. That if it would have been um, my initial assessment of her, I might have missed the fracture just because I really am not used to palpating, or I've never palpated a broken finger before. I didn't really know what the gapping or grinding would feel like per se, but I'm glad I had Sarah there to give me a secondary opinion because I wasn't sure. I mean, I knew there was something wrong with that was the main area of pain was right here, but I just assumed C subluxed and there was extreme swelling in the area. Not that there was an actual fracture, but because there wasn't really a positive test per se with the flick test or compression test of the finger. I guess that's one thing I do need. That's one thing obviously I need to work on is making sure, well, having a better feeling for my palpations and understanding what normal should feel like. I did do a bilateral comparison, and it didn't feel like there was like because the way the fracture was, it was fractured, but unless you pulled traction on it, it was actually lined up still as if there was just swelling in that localized area. So I guess one of my goals would be to have a better understanding of what that would feel like. With that being said, I believe it was an overall good evaluation. I just didn't understand how the pathology could present how the pathology could present itself in that situation, and just something I need to work on and hope that I will get better with throughout my education.